business.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. As I mentioned last year at this time, I remember the late Saul Bowski, and he was a very wonderful young man, and hopefully the learning that we do today will be an aliyah for his neshama. I want to preface my remarks this morning, and I'll probably say it a few times during our discussion, is that I am not giving a psak halacha. I'm just discussing an issue from different perspectives. And if you have a specific question, I would suggest that you ask your local rabbi. Again, I'm just exploring the issue. It's not a new issue. It's been around for a very, very long time, as we'll see. And I'm not poskening, I'm just exploring it from an intellectual perspective and for us to understand what the issues are. The first issue that I want to raise is the fact that society today is very different than it was in ancient times, in medieval times, and even in pre-modern times. In most cultures, women were in the background. They were relegated to the home, the kitchen, the bedroom, and the church. That was the expression in German about how Kirchen, Kirche, etc. And with the rise of modern society and women getting involved, and by the way, women were involved in business and in many, many communal functions throughout history. But they were the exceptions. They were very, very famous and successful businesswomen throughout the Middle Ages. There were women who rose to great heights in some other social circles. But the issue here is whether or not a woman could be in a position of authority. That is the way I want to phrase this discussion. Can a woman be an arbiter of issues? Can she be in a position where she makes decisions that are binding on others?
She does at home.
She does at home, yeah, we know that. But aside from the house, on a communal basis. And this goes back to the early period in Sefer Shoftim. We had a wonderful woman, her name was Devorah. And the Torah tells us that she was a shofetes. She was a shofet. Now, if you look through Sefer Shoftim, all the Shoftim were men, and a shofet was more than just arbiter, a judge, but basically the shofet was the communal leader.
Yeah, okay. All right, darling. Take care of yourself. We'll see you soon.
The shofet was a communal leader, and basically they ruled the Jewish community at that time. So Devorah, as a woman, was the shofetet. How she came to that position is another story, but the point is, in Sefer Shoftim, Perek Dalet, Pasuk Dalet, V'hi shofetet Yisrael, she was the shofet. She was the leader of the Jewish community. She was a judge, and from that point on, that posed a tremendous problem to the rabbis. How could she be a shofetet? How could she be a leader of the Jewish community if women weren't allowed to serve in that capacity? So where does that whole issue come from, that women cannot assume leadership positions in the Jewish community? So there's another pasuk. When you enter Eretz Yisrael, ki savo el haaretz, asher Hashem Elokecha nosei l'chol l'rishta v'yashachta. But when you finally enter Eretz Yisrael, v'amarta osim olai melech, and you say to Hashem, we want a king, k'chol hagoyim, right? So Hashem says to them, if you want, som tosim alecha melech, you can appoint a king, you can coronate a king. What are the qualifications? Mikerev achecha tosim alecha melech. a male among you should be the king. Lo suchal lo se soleha ish nachri. It can't be a non-Jew. It has to be a Jew. It can't be a slave, and so forth and so on. So there are clearly, when it says mikerav achecha, the Rambam, very in a very famous psak, melech velo malka. Right? There should be a king, but not a queen. Even though we've had queens in Jewish history, separate discussion. But the king has to be a male. Can't be a slave, can't be a convert, and it can't be a woman, because the Sifri, which is the Tanaitic commentary on the Torah, time of the Mishnah, the Sifri says, Melech below Malka. Very clear. Okay. The Rambam, one second. The Rambam adds a line. And very often, when you're learning the Rambam, we don't always know where his sources are from. He said in one of his chuvos, I'd like to write an annotated Mishnah Torah. We never got around to it. The biggest criticism of the Mishnah Torah was that he didn't give his sources. Now, the Kesef Mishnah, which is Yosef Karo, the author of the Shulchan Aruch, tries to footnote the Rambam. And he's a very good job of it. Wherever the Rambam quotes a halacha from the Talmud, from the Medrash, wherever he quotes it, Chuvas Agonim, he finds a source. But there are many, many situations where the Kesef Mishnah says, I don't know where he got it from. There are some classic cases, the reinstitution of smicha. There are a number of issues where the Rambam comes up with something on his own. It would seem that it's because we don't have the sources. Maybe he has sources, there may be sources that we don't have anymore. But very often, he comes up with something on his own. So on this halacha, melech velo malka, he adds a line, and he says, V'chein l'chol mesimos b'Yisrael, for all communal positions as well, meaning a woman cannot be in charge in any communal capacity. The Rambam adds that. Okay? Now, again, I'm not going to analyze the Rambam completely, but be aware the Rambam lived in a Muslim country where women were very, very much in the background. But that's a comment. He also says you can beat your wife if she doesn't behave properly. That's another situation. But again, very often he comes up with stuff on his own. Now, this line is a very controversial line because the Sifri, again, the Sifri is the Tanaitic commentary on the Chumash. The Sifri, in most editions of the Sifri, it says, Melech velo Malka, and it quotes, the same line, V'chein l'chol mesimos b'Yisrael, and it adds for all communal positions. And this is the basis for what most poskim throughout the ages have utilized for excluding women from communal leadership positions. Now, before the printing press, everybody wrote things by hand, obviously. I'll come back to you, I didn't forget you. Everything was run by, so it's quite possible that when they were copying over the Sifri, they had in mind that Rambam, and they stuck those words in. Now, it's not me that's saying it, because the Vilna Gaon and a few others who studied critical editions of all the halachic literature, and there are several manuscripts that simply say Melech velo Malka, period. And they leave out that line about communal leadership, which is the Rambam's Das Yachid. But everybody quotes the Rambam because they think he based it on the Sifri. Question.
Many times in the Torah where it refers to male, we say it applies to women also.
Okay, but
So why not here?
because you need a specific drasha of Chazal to tell you that. It doesn't always apply. If Chazal say for men and for women, okay. But here, because of this language, all communal positions, not just kingship, That seems to be an almost universal interpretation of that pasuk in Chumash. Melech v'lo malka, and all communal leadership positions as well, based on this faulty reading of the Sifri.
If you're gonna go by that, so you can say, when you come into the land, all the mitzvahs only apply in Israel, not the Chutzlaritz.
No. But again, that's why you have Torah Shabbal Peh. And the Torah Shabbal Peh explains all these issues. It explains that there are certain things that are only in Eretz Yisrael. But all mitzvahs apply, outside of Eretz Yisrael as well. But that's why you have Torah Shabbal Peh. And in this case, Torah Shabbal Peh would seem, the preponderance of halachic authorities would seem to indicate that women would be excluded. Now, socially, this was the fact. Women did not occupy positions of communal leadership. Women were not seen in the public sphere. It just didn't happen. You did have rare women who occupy positions of leadership. Very rare. You had a few people. You even had a female Hasidic Rebbe in the 19th century, early 20th century. She was called the Moidel from Ludmir. From Ludmir, Poland, and she made Aliyah, and her Hasidim went with her to Israel. This is in pre-statehood times. So you did have a Hasidic Rebbe who was a woman, but Chazal wrestled with the Vorah. How could a woman be a shofetet? And Chazal came up with all types of intriguing interpretations. Well, when she paskened halacha, she sat behind the mechitza, or behind the tree, so they wouldn't see her, or she covered herself. I mean, they came up with all kinds of ways to minimize her role as a shofetet. Yeah.
Would a Forsaken?
Oh, 1 second, Nathan. Yes.
That a woman can serve in leadership.
Okay, so
The Navi is part of the Tanakh.
I agree with you, as do many other rabbis. However, you have to understand that in terms of the sociology of communal life, women did not occupy prominent public positions. And again, so if you combine the sociological aspect with some of the right-wing halakhic aspects, that's why women were not, again, in the forefront of communal leadership. Now, it doesn't mean it didn't happen, but I'd like to try to understand the halakhic significance of what we're talking about. First of all, be aware, democracy and halacha are not exactly sympathetic to each other. The halakhic system is not totally democratic. There are specific rules that we can't challenge. Okay? That's key, and keep that in the back of your mind. The fact that women were not seen as appropriate for tznius reasons, a whole bunch of other reasons, throughout history, to occupy prominent positions, it was very rare that it happened. Okay? Let's fast forward now to the 19th century and the nascent Zionist movement. Okay, so Jews are now, first Aliyah, the second Aliyah, they're coming to Israel. And a large number of Orthodox Jews, Talmidim of the Gra, the Vilna Gaon tried to get there to Israel, he couldn't make it, but his students did. And they set up what they call the old Yishuv. Almost all of them in Hagim in Yerushalayim, for example, followed the minhag of the Vilna Gaon, because they were the ones that were there. So the old Yishuv was a fairly monolithic Orthodox community. Okay? As things progressed and as Zionism moved on and Israel was about to become a state with democratic values, socialist democratic, if I want to categorize it, big question comes up. Should we allow women to vote? It's a simple question. Women, if you vote, in a sense, that is a format leading to control of some sort, what they call sorora. Sorry? We're talking now in the 1920s.
Even in America,
Women didn't get to right. I know. At almost the same time period, the women got to vote in America. But again, the sociological aspect can't be ignored. But in Israel, when they decided to give women the vote, that caused a tremendous split in the Jewish community, in the Orthodox Jewish community. And that is where the Eidah Haredus was born. The Eidah Haredus split off from the normative Orthodox community to form their own kehillah, so to speak, and the other group became known as the Agudas HaRabbanim. They didn't let the British know because they didn't want to upset the Balfour Declaration. So they didn't tell the British that we are really now two separate communities. But that's where the Eidah Haredus, which is a separate community, was born over this issue of women voting. Before I go on, Nathan, you had a question?
Why would a Pasek not be considered a communal leader? I'm thinking of Bruria.
No, she wasn't a leader in that regard. No, Bruria was one of several women who were very, very learned in the Gemara. Rabbi Hanina's wife was also mentioned. There were many women who were very, very learned, but that wasn't communal leadership. That was just being learned. All right. There's so much to talk about here. I don't want to go through the whole list of poskim, but the key issue, and I'll try to focus on this. The key issue is something called srora. Srora could be translated, I don't know how to translate srora. I would say total control over whatever the case may be. For example, one rabbi summarizes, if a person is in charge of anything and makes the final decision, or the buck stops here type of thing, that's called sorora. When there was a mashgiach who died, and the family had no parnasa, so his wife wanted to take over the job as mashgiach. And Rav Moshe Feinstein said she could do it, because being a mashgiach does not involve sorora, does not involve, I don't know how to translate sorora.
how do you spell
Sin, resh, hey. Control, total control, I guess you'd call it. Total control. Because as a shofetes, Devora had total control. And that's the paradigm, that's the model. And many poskim, contemporary poskim, wrestle with this issue. They have throughout history. There's a whole, we can go through lists and lists and lists of different poskim. I will tell you that the issue came up many times throughout history. And Rav Moshe Feinstein, aside from his tshuva on the mashgiach, the female mashgiach, his son-in-law, Moshe Tendler Zatzal, was involved in a group called the Association of Orthodox Jewish Scientists. Very famous organization. And at one point, there was a woman who was nominated to be president. A woman scientist was nominated, a frum woman, was nominated to become the president of the Association of Orthodox Jewish Scientists. So Rav Tendler asked his father-in-law, Rav Feinstein, can she be the president of an organization? And in that case, he ruled, yes, she could, because any organization, the president does not really have total control. You have a board, you have to make decisions. You can make certain decisions, but you're limited. If you have unlimited control, like a king, that's sorora. Now, that being said, he was still opposed to other types of women in leadership positions for, again, a variety of reasons having to do with sorora. I mean, even the president of a shul, for example, okay? The president of a shul has a board, and the board has to approve expenditures of money. The president may have certain limited powers to do, but the question is, does a shul president have unlimited power? If you say yes, that's a certain type of shul. But most shuls, it doesn't happen that way. Yes, Mendy.
What would the Haredim look at when Golda Meir was appointed?
Okay, so again, the Golda Meir issue was hotly debated. I can tell you there are literally volumes written on the problems of having Israel as a democratic state because of women's involvement in the Knesset, women, Golda Meir, and again, the rabbis wrestled with this. A lot of rabbis were very unhappy with her being the president of Israel. And again, there are poskim, I would say the vast majority of poskim, the vast majority are opposed to women in communal leadership positions. There are some who are more lenient. And again, I repeat what I said before, I am not posking for any individual synagogue. For those that are listening, if you have a question, you ask your local rabbi. Rav Soloveitchik was not in favor of women as shul presidents, and he was asked that question directly. When Rabbi Wolfish was the executive secretary of the Rabbinical Council of America, they sent him to the Rav Soloveitchik with that specific question. And he was not, he didn't say absolutely not, he was not in favor. Others, his son-in-law, Rav Aaron Lichtenstein, was not really wholeheartedly in favor of it, but he wasn't 100% negative. He wouldn't come out in public and say, I'm in favor of it, but he was asked, would you daven in a shul where the woman was the president? And he said, yeah. And there are a few people like that. But the issue is one of srora, like a king. If an individual has total authority, where the buck stops here, and they can make all decisions, that's what's prohibited. If it's limited authority, then you have room, you have wiggle room. Yes, Bill.
Those that are opposed to women being president, what happens if she's a co-president?
Okay.
That group still oppose.
Let me put it to you this way. Kol kvudo bas melech penima, a very famous pasuk, that a woman's place should not be public, it should be private. Woman should not be a public personality. Okay? So there are many rabbanim, many poskim who would say that a woman should not be in the spotlight. She should be, that it's inappropriate for tznius reasons, for other halakhic reasons, that it's not a woman's role to be a communal leadership position.
So there's a Hasidic sect, have a system.
No.
The ladies auxiliary, have something where women are in
Well,
charge.
let me put it to you this way. The biggest Bikur Cholim in New York City is Satmar. They go around to hospitals every day in New York City, Lower Manhattan, women. And they go around, they visit a hospital. It's the biggest Bikur Cholim organization anywhere. And they are fantastic. But within the Satmar community, I don't think, and I could be wrong, but I don't think the leadership of the women's Bikur Cholim ever sat privately with the Satmar Rebbe one-on-one. Wouldn't happen. Wouldn't happen. Again, the preponderance of rabbinic authority would be opposed. There are, however, some poskim who would say, since in our contemporary democratic society today, no one individual has total autonomous authority to make ultimate decisions by himself or herself, therefore, a woman as a president or a co-president might not be objectionable. Because again, that's how we function. Now, if you had a situation, I mean, Hasidic Shtibelach, right? The Rebbe rules the roost. What the Rebbe says goes. You don't have a similar situation with a woman running an organization. A business, perhaps, but a religious organization, for example, and again, I don't think any posek was ever asked about Hadassah or any of the women's Zionist organizations, because their presidents are all women. But that might be a different situation than a shul. But clearly, this is something that has been debated from day one, from the time that the rabbis of the Talmud had a problem with Devorah as a shofetes. And they tried to rationalize it in all different types of ways because they were unhappy with it. And I'm sure they weren't happy about Hilni Hamalka. I mean, we had several Jewish queens in Jewish history. And I mean, the Gemara even quotes Hilni Hamalka had a big sukkah, and she invited all the rabbis into her sukkah for a Simchas Pesach Shoeva type of thing. And she was a frum woman. But it's not something that they looked kindly upon. It was an aberration. But if you were to ask your local rabbi, and he'll make a determination whether or not this is appropriate or not. Again, there are poskim who are more lenient than others, but the majority would say no. That brings us to a whole other question, which we're not going to get into today, about whether women can be rabbis. That's a whole other question which deals with other issues. Yes?
I was involved in writing the Constitution for Shul. The rabbi wanted a clause that
Only men can be presidents.
when we filed for nonprofit status,
Right.
they made us take that out.
Sure. That would be very, very true. That's it. That's it. And you couldn't claim a religious. That's interesting.
Just
There's a special department in New York. There's a special department for nonprofit.
Well, every state has. It has it in New Jersey also. And you have to submit your bylaws and so forth.
There was one other thing.
What about church? Church? Pastor of the church.
No, but you see,
I think the church has special dispensation.
no. But see, the mistake that you made was sending in your constitution. You should have sent in your bylaws instead. And I have a lawyer to back me up here.
Somebody in the state got technical, so we shouldn't put in the Constitution. Doesn't mean that they didn't check this, we must have women as president. They just didn't want to see that. Right.
So the bottom line is that if you have a situation where the best person for the job is a woman, I would suggest you ask a rabbi, and he'll do his due diligence and his research, and he will find poskim on both sides of the question. And depending on where his inclinations are, or how he interprets the sources, whether indeed a president of a shul involves total authority, srara, and that can be problematic. If a president in our contemporary world does not have total authority and is answerable to a board, then you have more wiggle room to allow for a woman as a shul president.
Women being the head of something, I forget exactly what it was, some kind of organization. And he said, now that's not srara.
Right.
And he said, it's perfectly okay.
Well, that's the whole issue is what is considered srora, and srora means you have total autonomy to make decisions. Yeah. Again, so there's enough wiggle room to allow for it. Yeah, right. Well, yeah, and you have, I don't know, well, yeah, okay, NCSY is a different situation, I think, but In any event, these are some of the sources. If you want to look it up, find all you can on Devora Hanaviyah, Shofetet. The Devora, all the halachos, all the machlokim stem back to that pasuk in Shoftim, and Melech v'lo Malka, also excluding women from communal position. The Rambam is the key person there, because the Rambam adds that in, and the question is whether the Rambam has a source for it, or it's just his own opinion. And then when they copied over the Sifri before it was printed, manuscript, maybe, very often, what people used to do, and I'll just end with this, because it's a fascinating study. When you look at manuscripts, very often when people would copy, all they have are manuscripts before publishing. Before the printing press was invented, people would erase stuff and write in other things. And sometimes when they would write things in, the next generation thinks that's the original. Because in scholarly terms, you have to look for what they call the stemma codicum. The stemma codicum is the most original handwritten text you can find. And very often that original handwritten text has embellishments in it. And there's nothing you can do about that, because all you have is that manuscript. If you have 3 or 4 different manuscripts, then you can compare them, which is older, but in terms of the Sifri, if you look at it, almost every published edition of the Sifri, is the Rambam's language. But there are several editions, critical editions, edited by the Vilna Gaon and a few others, that just say Melech v'lo Malka and don't add and all other communal positions. Yeah.
Is this concept only applied to a Jewish woman? In other words, for instance, say, okay, if a woman was running for president of the United States and she was Jewish, if I believe in this, I should vote for her. How about if she's not Jewish? Would that be a problem?
Interesting question. Off the top of my head, I would probably say yes. I would probably say, Mandy, I would answer the question yes. It probably would be a problem. Off the top.
For non-Jew.
I would think so. But again, I don't think they would ask the Shiloh.
The president of the United States doesn't have unlimited authority.
Okay, so that fits into the whole, that's it. That's part of the whole question. If the president does not have total srora, now he does have certain authority to do certain things on his own. And God knows what's going to happen in this new administration. But a president does have authority. So that might be an example of srora, because he does have the ability to do certain things on his own. So that would probably fit into that category, because a president, even though he doesn't have total authority in every area, he does have the authority to make certain decisions, to pardon somebody, to appoint somebody. He has certain authority. It's a very fertile topic for discussion, and as the Gemara says, Zil Gemara. Yeah.
Why didn't any Rabbanim say you can't come to the common? It's against halacha.
I don't know if in fact they did or they didn't. I don't know. Because they may have based their electoral decisions on other criteria. A separate topic of whether rabbis should get involved in politics is another story. Yeah.
So, through the years, in the Orthodox movement, women have become more and more educated, more and more scholarly, and taken on more leadership and teaching roles. So it's not like it was, long ago.
Yes.
So what's to stop with all due respect to the male population? The women have come along in terms of education, ability,
Yes.
leadership. They can walk and chew gum at the same time, so that they can work and they can have a family and they can do this other thing. So what's to stop a progression where finally, women say, enough already. This is your male ego problem or a male problem. Let's move on.
This is why you have women rabbis in the Orthodox community. This is why you have a seminary to produce women who are known as Rabbi. And the envelope is definitely being pushed. The fact that we are encouraging women to get more of an advanced Jewish education, this is the logical progression. So at some point in the near future, you may find women as rabbis in mainstream Orthodox synagogues. Hasn't happened yet. There are Orthodox women rabbis in certain synagogues, but they're not part of what we call the mainstream Orthodox synagogues. I don't think you'd find that yet. The Orthodox, the RCA has come out against it. The RCA came out against women rabbis, or perhaps better phrase, women rabbis in synagogues. But you do have these more modern Orthodox elements that are ordaining women. Avi Weiss's group, for example, and others, yeah.
But they have conservative.
So conservative reform, yes, that they had for quite a while. That they have for quite a while. As a matter of fact, who was it? Joy Prizham was the first Reformed rabbi who was already retired. So that's how long ago this has been going on. And it's happening slowly in the Orthodox community. You have many shuls, mainstream Orthodox shuls, that have yoetzet halacha on their staff. Somebody can go to for halakha questions relating to women, which is one step closer to having female rabbis. And which, again, there's still a lot of objection to that, but we'll see what happens. We're heading in that direction. Okay, if there are no other questions, have a great day and stay warm out there.
Okay.
Thank you, Wally.
Or down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they do a great job. Their Bikur Cholim is unsurpassed, no question.